Hey, what's going on, guys? Dr. Mediocre. Yeah, you read the title. This is going to be another ranking video of sorts, but this time, rather than ranking stock weapons based on how good I think they are compared to one another, I'm going to rank weapons based on how cool I think they look. Yeah, it's one of those videos. This episode is going to be for the multi-class weapons. I was originally going to do spy weapons, but I thought I would test the waters before diving into specific classes' weapons. So if you're liking this video and you enjoy watching it, let me know. Best way to do so is by leaving a comment or liking the video, though I can't technically force you, as far as you know. Like I was saying though, I will be talking all multi-class or all-class weapons and ranking them based on how cool I think they are. Functionality or how good the weapon is will not be taken into account during the ranking. This is my list. You may disagree. Feel free to comment your list down below or berate me for daring to put a specific item in a specific tier. There is really not much more to it, so let's dive into the video. While I am ranking them in order, I will have categories for these weapons, including Sexy ASF, for the best of the best, Cool, okay, not the best, and Fugly for the real slime balls. Like I said, this does not reflect how I feel about the purpose of the weapon. Since a lot of these are reskins, it applies less to this video, but especially in other videos, if I do more, that will be the case. For the ugliest of the fugliest, we have... Okay, I know I'm going to get flack for this, but I'm sticking to my guns on this one, and I feel very strongly about this one. That weapon is the Pretty Machete.
Hoot! Hoot!
I know, a mob is forming as we speak, but in my opinion, the Pretty Machete is just not that great looking. It feels like a Lego piece. That's the best way I could describe it. I forget what, I don't know, it's like a reference to something. I'll put it on screen. It's super thick, and its color gradient is a bit strange. I don't know, I just don't really see the appeal of this weapon. Well, actually, I know that it's the only multi-class melee weapon besides the Golden Frying Pan that can be used by all 9 classes, including Spy and Engineer, but that just does not save it for me. It's just an oversized toy knife. No hate to the creator for this item. I'm a nobody, and this item was obviously successful back in 2016 when it was added. I remember seeing this thing around a lot. I don't see it as much anymore, but I still do occasionally see somebody whip it out. It's just not my cup of tea. I think it's kind of ugly. So it starts off the list as the least cool looking multi-class weapon, in my very correct personal opinion. Thank Gaben, I don't have to outright buy this weapon. All hail the Ren system. There is only one more weapon in the fugly tier, so let's talk about it right now. This is another controversial one, but I feel the same way about this as I did the Pretty Machete, and I hate to say it, but that weapon is the Luger Morph.
I'm gonna beat you like a rented mule, boy.
I already know I'm going to get so many dislikes on this video. A lot of you, actually the vast majority of you, are going to disagree with me on this one, but I'm going to give my reasoning. Here we go. First, this weapon is only obtainable through getting achievements in the game Poker Night at the inventory. I'm sure most of you knew that, and in case you didn't, yep, if you got certain achievements or did a certain task in that game, you would be able to get TF2 items and items for other games as well, but obviously we're not talking about that. That game isn't available anymore, so the only way to get it is if you already had it before the company went out of business, or if you do a sketchy family share deal. I'm sure you've seen this on YouTube. I am not doing that, and I don't have the game, so pardon me for requiring a Skyle server in order to get adequate gameplay. The Luger in real life is a really sexy gun. I mean, just look at it. It's beautiful. That clean, sleek metal, and it has quite the history too. It's just a great looking weapon. I've been a fan of Luger's design for a very long time, especially in video games. With that said, I'm not a big fan of Luger Morph's design here in TF2. Like, the Pretty Machete, the best way I could describe how it looks is like a Lego piece, like one of those little blasters you give to a Lego Star Wars character. I get that TF2 is not a realistic game by any means. I know somebody's going to try to throw that at me. I don't require realism in my 1960s cartoony shooter. But I am just not a big fan of the design. It looks clunky as hell, just like a couple Lego pieces put together. It's it just feels really plasticky. I shouldn't say feels plasticky, it looks plasticky. It just looks really, really bizarre. It isn't terrible. It's not a complete eyesore. The fugly rating for both these items are a little bit extreme for the sake of entertainment, but I'm not lying when I say I don't really care for the design of the Luger. It just doesn't really work for me. It looks very, very out of place. And I get it, it's from a different game, but at the same time, some weapons like the Widowmaker or the Black Rose look pretty good inside of TF2 despite being from another game. And also, the Luger, especially on Scout, just, I don't know what it is. It looks okay on Engineer, but it looks even worse on Scout. That took it down a few points. Okay, I'm going to now put out the fires that have appeared on my roof from the angry mob, and we can move on to the not the best tier. These are just not the best, but I wouldn't call them outright ugly, like I did the Pretty Machete and the Luger Morph. I'm sorry about that. Please, do not hate me. Let's get on to the rest of the video. So here we are, one tier up. We are going to look at the fuggliest of the non-fuglies. This weapon, in my opinion, is just not very cool. It's pretty funny, and there's a lot of meme potential with it, but it's not a very cool item. The reason it isn't at the bottom is because the detailing isn't awful, so I thought it'd be unfair to put it all the way at the bottom with the other two that I put down there. So it's right here at the bottom of not quite fugly tier. That item is the Hamshank.
You know what you're dominating now? Bleeding.
Okay, I don't think this one should be too controversial, but I don't know. I'm not saying it looks bad. Like I said, the modeling on it's actually pretty good. Remember that. I just don't think it's that cool looking. Do you think a piece of ham still on the bone is cool? I mean, maybe you do. I've seen a lot weirder opinions. The Hamshank, it's a piece of ham. Dude, that's all it is on a bone that you hit people with. There isn't much to it. It's silly, yes. It's got silly jiggle physics. It's funny, sometimes. Though, when you're asking whether it's cool or not, the answer's no, not really. So there you have it. I can't really go more in depth on that because there's not much to say about it. Moving on. Next, we have not the most controversial opinion, but the most controversial weapon in the game. That being the Conscientious Objector.
Hello, Fräuleins!
Okay, I'm going to be real with you. I'm not going to keep saying Conscientious Objector because I know I'm going to screw it up a couple times. So I'm just going to refer to it as the Objector. That's what most people call it anyway, from here on out. Okay? Just making that clear. When I'm ranking this item, I'm specifically talking about the weapon itself. If you somehow do not know or you haven't been playing long enough, the Objector allows you to put any custom decal, as long as it's the right size, on the weapon. It could be whatever you want. There is a toggle to turn it off, but other than that, there is no moderation. So as you can imagine, while there are some funny ones here and there, the vast majority of them are just either pornography, racism, or a mix of both. Like I stated though, I'm not judging that when judging the weapon itself. I'm not taking that into account. Maybe the people using the weapon, but not the weapon design itself, okay? I am not the biggest fan of the design. I use it because it's funny, but if you couldn't write anything on it, it was just a sign, I wouldn't use it. It's a metal pipe with a piece of wood on it. Then the piece of wood has a little paper where the decal goes, and by default, it's the TF logo. It's just kind of bland. It isn't really cool looking on its own. It is funny to smack people with the sign, but my thought when seeing the Objector isn't, oh, that's sick, it's, oh, that's sick. Ugh. Not terrible looking, but bland. I think it's right where it belongs. Let's keep counting down. This one here is also going to have some contention, but the reason I dislike it is not for the concept, but for the execution. This is our first non-reskin of the video. That weapon is the Pain Train.
Let's go take down to the Pain Train station.
The Pain Train, originally intended for Pyro, is a Demo Man and Soldier melee weapon that was added back in 2010 as I believe the first community-contributed weapon and the first non-stock multi-class weapon. It is one of the few weapons in the game where its bonuses and penalties are passive, with the weapon's functionality itself, so the actual melee, basically just being a reskin of the shovel and bottle. It gives you a 2x capture speed on payloads and control points for a 10% vulnerability to the most common damage type in the game, bullets. Though this is not about the functionality, I just wanted to give a brief introduction to the weapon. I'm sure most of you knew it, but some people forget this weapon's even in the game, so maybe it was a refresher. The pain train is a piece of wood with a train spike going through the top of it. I really like the concept of this weapon. I think it's quite cool. However, with that being said, the execution is where it kind of gets me, and it gets dropped down to here. It looks kind of strange, especially on Demo Man. He holds it weird. I can't explain exactly why. It's just cocked back so far. It just looks kind of uncanny. And on the Soldier, it's slightly better, but still kind of underwhelming, and doesn't feel like it really fits in his arsenal. In looks-wise. I will admit, I am a defender of the pain train, though I can't really defend how it looks. It's a slab of slightly bent wood with a giant nail through it. It's just not very good in execution. Once again, not the worst thing ever. It's just mediocre. It's just okay. Well, let's keep the train moving and move along to the next spot. Following the pain train, we have a melee weapon that I forgot was even in my inventory. I had to check to make sure I had it for this video, and luckily I did. That item is the Necro Smasher.
The fools. They have no idea how strong I'm getting.
This is truly the part of the video where I go from thinking the weapons are straight up mid to actually being somewhat unique and cool. I still don't think they're the best, which is why it's here, but it's not complete crap, I guess you could say. The Necro Smasher is a scaled down version of the world's largest strongman machine on the Halloween map Carnival of Carnage. I'm sure most of you have seen it. The one where if you step on the button, the hammer comes down, killing anybody underneath it and launching those nearby away with its blast. Yeah, it's just a smaller version of that, even with the little mechanical hand. The Necro Smasher is cool in terms of being a neat idea, but it's not really cool in the traditional meaning of cool that most of us think of. It's a neat idea, and I do like the design with the little white glove hand and the fact that it's just a giant wooden mallet that you use to concuss your enemies with. It's just awesome. Neat melee, but in terms of coolness, it's just kind of whatever. It's okay. Not the worst on the list, obviously, but the best way I can describe it is it's the worst of the best. Bottom of the top. No, yeah, cool item. It deserves to get the spot it's gotten. Let's move on to the last weapon in the so-called not-so-great tier. For the last item in the not-so-great tier, or not the best tier, before we move on to what I consider the truly cool-ish weapons, I guess, before we get to the really cool weapons, we have, before I say it, I want to make it clear that I do like this weapon. I have a Spec KS version of it. I use it in a lot of my loadouts, but it's objectively just kind of a whatever-looking item. The Left 4 Dead promo item, also known as the Frying Pan. Honey Bing Bong, NVM max upgrade melee swing speed on Scout and hit players standing around, Demo Pan Gaming, Scout Shaco, Dangerous 2, the Frying Pan. While not a TF2 original, I mean obviously, it's a frying pan, what I meant is that it wasn't specifically designed for Team Fortress 2, but rather was a promo item from Left 4 Dead. I think you get it. It's a staple of the game. One of the best near all-class melees. I kind of wish the basic pan was all-class, but whatever, a man can dream. I think the frying pan is a fun item, but would you ever describe it as cool-looking? Like really, it's a frying pan. It's silly, but not exactly cool-looking. It's just a black circle with a handle, aka a pan. Nothing special, so I won't dwell on it. Let's move up to the next tier, labeled okay. This will encompass weapons that are just on the cusp of being cool. There are only a few in this tier for me, so it should be relatively short. For the first item we open up with in the OK tier, we have a weapon I'm sure the majority of you haven't seen outside of Skyle servers and trade maps. A forgotten item that only a few earned legitimately. The Memory Maker.
You're like a car crash in slow motion. It's like I'm watching you fly through a windshield.
The Memory Maker is an old-fashioned handle-cranked camcorder. This item was awarded to those who came in 2nd to 7th place in the Old Sexy Award. For those who don't know, and I know there's a lot of new players, so you may have never seen it, the Saxy Awards were hosted by Valve. You could send in your SFM shorts, Source Filmmaker, in different categories for the chance to win. I'm not sure about all the specifics, and honestly it doesn't matter anymore because the Saxys have been discontinued since, I believe, 2017. Rip Saxys. Anyway, this weapon isn't obtainable anymore, and most people don't have a legit one, but you'll see them on Scowl servers, especially since people can use the /item command to get it whenever they want to. That's how I got footage of the memory maker in, well, this video. It's just a neat item. Detailing is pretty good. It looks pretty clean. I mean, my detail settings don't do this thing justice. I run on slightly lower settings, but the memory maker is a really nice looking weapon. It's just, I can't really say much else. It's a little bit clunky, which is why it's down here. It looks awkward in some player models' hands, like Soldier. But other than that, it's pretty sweet. It starts us off in the okay tier. Following up the camcorder, we have one of my least favorite items in the game, and most people will agree with that sentiment, but I do like the concept of it, and it does look pretty sick. So I can't knock it too much, visually anyway. That item is the base jumper.
Screaming Eagle! Ah!
Oh, the base jumper, how you have fallen. Pun intended. The base jumper is another shared weapon between Demoman and Soldier, yet I'm not even sure why. It's no doubt a Soldier weapon, but it's equipable on Demoman. And it's like not even in the right slot. It's a grenade launcher replacement. I guess I could see you, jumping in the air and shooting down stickies, but your damage is just so low. I feel like it would be better to use the grenade launcher. Or maybe you should just be able to equip it in either slot. Doesn't matter. It's best used with the weapon that it was meant to be paired with in the first place, being the airstrike. Rip the base jumper. God, they neutered that thing. Anyway, the base jumper is a nice looking item. An army green backpack that you wear on your back that deploys a little white parachute. There's some nice detailing on it. All the little strings, the parachute pin, and the parachute handle. It's all pretty nice looking. And it's one of the few items that does green correct, in my opinion. It's just good looking. Though it is nowhere near the coolest item. Despite being on the lower end, I'd still consider it pretty middle of the road. Solid looks, just sad that the functionality is not in alignment. Well, let's float on over to the next weapon. We've got a spooky one here. This is an item I rarely ever see in normal loadouts. I mean, it could be because most stock melees suck compared to unlocks, but that's beyond the point. It's pretty much relegated to a new melee that a new player uses because they typed give all in a trade server, or a veteran who wants to do a silly bone skull loadout. That weapon is the Bat Out of Hell.
Hey, you got a hit! Great!
The Bat Out of Hell is a skull. That's pretty badass already, but it comes equipped with different styles. You can make it into a scout head with the hat and earpiece, Demo Man with the cap and eye patch, or Soldier with the helmet. It's actually really cool. I've heard someone say before, and I agree, that it would be pretty neat if it had all 9 class styles, but I understand that those like heavy may be a little bit difficult to make look good, and not many people use it anyway, so it would pretty much be a waste of time. Still would be pretty dope. The Bat Out of Hell is another one of those silly items that memers use. The detailing is nice once again, the jiggle physics aren't bad, and the kill icon is fitting despite it being the unassigned kill icon, or the environmental kill icon. This is a solid item, and there's not much more I can say without repeating myself, despite that being what I've been doing pretty much the entire time. Did you know that this weapon used to be Halloween restricted? Just for a short time. I'm pretty sure if you tried to equip it after Halloween, it would just cause your melee to be unusable. Not 100% sure. So there's a fun fact for you guys. Don't worry, I'll have more to talk about as we get further in the video with the nicer looking weapons. Let's get the hell out of here and on to the next pick. This last one was tough for me. I originally had it much lower on the list, but in-game I realized it's a lot cooler looking than I originally gave it credit for. I know this is going to make some people angry, but I want to preface this by saying I think it's cool, but not enough in the traditional sense. It is the best of the okay/mediocre tier. That item is the Crossing Guard.
I'm gonna beat you like a rented mule, boy.
I really don't see this item in-game much, but I know it's a fan favorite by a specific niche. The crossing guard is a railroad signal light that has been ripped from the ground and used to hit your enemies. It was added in the end-of-the-line update back in 2014. The detailing is magnificent on this weapon. It's so simple yet so elegant. I'm running out of adjectives if you couldn't tell. The crossing guard even comes equipped with flashing lights to let your opponents know that you're about to displace their brain with their liver. It's also got a nice kill icon, which gives it some bonus points in my opinion. The crossing guard is not bad by any stretch, but there are quite a few items I have above it for a few reasons or another. Typically just because they're cooler in the normal, traditional sense, as I've been saying. That will do it for our mediocre/okay tier. With the exception of this item, which I just think barely didn't make the cut. However, we have the largest list of weapons in the cool tier coming up. The cool tier is just full of weapons I find legitimately cool looking in one way or another. So let's check it out. Welcome to the cool tier. This is going to be the longest of the tiers so far, so be prepared. Like I said, these are weapons I legit find cool, like cool. To start us off, we have a weapon I'm 90% sure the majority of you have never seen before. That item is the Freedom Staff.
Rock! 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 Rock!
The Freedom Staff is a weapon I've only seen maybe once or twice, maybe 3 times in-game. Really, that's it. Some people may have a different experience. I could be in the minority here. I'm not 100% sure. Wouldn't be surprised. Apparently, this is a promo item for the game Total War. If you have purchased the Master Collection, you would be awarded a genuine variant of the Freedom Staff. If you don't know, the genuine category requires you to either earn an achievement or buy a real-life item in order to get. It serves no real purpose besides giving the weapon a green coat of paint and showing that you either traded for a genuine item or you bought something from another game. And also, when I say green coat of paint, I mean the tag. Typically, it's yellow. It's instead green. Still pretty cool, though. As for the weapon itself, I really like the design. It's a wooden stick with a gold eagle on top. The detailing work on this weapon is super nice, plus I'm just a sucker for gold in general. Personally, I'm more of a fan of silver, but gold, it gets there. Everything looks better when it's plastered in gold. I think the Freedom Staff just hits the right mix of simple yet nice design. So it gets to start off the cool tier. For our next item on the list, we have the workhorse of TF2, shared among 4 of the 9 classes, as a secondary for all of them except for 1. That weapon is the shotgun.
Woo-wee! Making bacon.
The shotgun is just such a nice weapon. If I'm not mistaken, it's based off the Ithaca 37, but with a pistol grip instead of a full shotgun stock. I think it's also a sawed-off barrel. Not 100% sure, could be wrong. It's such a sleek design. It is just the right bit of powerful feeling, but also nice and simple. Like, I know what it is. It's a shotgun. There's no unnecessary detail on it. The wood finish in the forward grip is great. The black barrel and the gray finish is just perfection. Well, I guess not the most perfect since it's not number 1, on the list, but it still looks great. And while I'm not taking sound into consideration, I like the sound of it. It doesn't have that reverb that some shotguns have in games like Half-Life and older Call of Duties, but when I hear it, I know exactly how strong it is. It's definitely strong, does really good burst damage, but it's going to take a few shells. It just has such a nice design. The only thing that bothers me is the shells eject towards your hands. That's not safe, man. That's not safe for your soldiers. I mean, imagine if a shell landed on your hand. That would be awful. That'd be like the worst thing that could happen in TF2. Other than that, I've said all I really need to say. I could go more in depth on little details, but there's really no reason to do that. It's the epitome of cool, yet simple. Great job, Shotty. Following up the classic that is the shotgun, we have another weapon from the olden days. It was tough for me to decide which one should go where, but I do believe that I prefer this weapon just a little bit more. The pistol.
I don't know how it did it, but this actually makes me more handsome.
The pistol, equipable by 2 of the 9 classes, has been one of my favorite weapons in TF2 since day 1. It probably also helps that I played on the Xbox 360 version first, so whenever I played Engineer or Scout, it was the only option I had. Also, on the Xbox 360 version, it worked differently because back when the weapon first came out, it was semi-auto, sort of. Basically, it would only fire 3 rounds per second instead of 6 if you held it down, but you could fire a little bit faster than you can now if you tap-fired it like a semi-automatic. Super weird, whatever. Still cool. And I know the Wrangler on Engineer is better, and I know Scout has way better options, which I tend to use, but that's besides the point. The pistol has always had a place in my heart, just because the design, like the shotgun, is great. This feels like a weapon Engineer and Scout would use, the sleek metal that makes up the slide with that wood finish pistol grip. It's just super nice looking. The only thing I dislike about the pistol is the blocky handle, but I understand why it's that way. The Team Fortress 2 characters have abnormally large hands, so the pistol grip was likely scaled up just to fit more comfortably within their hands. Though, what's funny is, in minimized view models, which I think 95% of the TF2 players use anyway, if you have those turned on, I think it looks pretty good and it's pretty much fixed, but regular view models, it can look a little bit funky. Still looks fantastic though. It's another item that is cool yet so simple. It deserves the spot it's got today, no doubt in my mind. What do we have next? Oh, another actual weapon, rather than just a melee. Sweet, let's take a look at it. Here we are in the top 5. Like I said yesterday, but you guys heard it just a second ago, this is another weapon that is not a melee. Do you know what it is? I'll give you a second. You got it? Did you leave a comment? I'd love if you did. It's not a requirement. No, don't go deleting it now. Just leave it there. Just leave it there. Thank you. I'm gonna give you the answer. It's the panic attack.
Oh, run! Run! I'm coming for you!
Man, the panic attack has had a crazy life, but this isn't about the stats. This is about the looks, which is pretty much the only thing that matters in this world. The panic attack is the only shotgun equipable by all 4 classes that use the shotgun, that being Soldier, Pyro, Engineer, and Heavy. This thing is gnarly. It's mostly gray with this metal casing on top. It's got a few heat vent holes on it as well, and the forward hand grip as well as the stock has a nice wood finish to it. And despite it being a small detail, I also like the bolts near the front as well as the iron sights. I just think they kind of bring everything together. Though I skipped over the most badass thing, that being the drum mag near the front of the gun, at the front of the barrel, I guess you could say. It's kind of way up there. I don't know what it's doing up there. Should be a little closer, a little, back ways, but hey, it's still cool. That's what makes this weapon, in my opinion. It would be neat without it, but that drum mag is just cool as hell. Too bad it doesn't have an actual function. I mean, at one time the panic attack had a loaded ammo penalty, only holding 4 instead of 6. Never utilizing that drum mag. Despite that, the panic attack is just a sick looking weapon. It feels a little bit more modern than like the stock shotgun, but I still think it fits quite well in the hands of the TF2 mercs. Really cool. It's earned its spot in the top 5. I present to you for this spot one of, if not the most well-known Team Fortress 2 weapon. It doesn't matter if you have 10,000 hours or just 10 hours, hell, it hardly matters if you played the game before at all, that's how recognizable this weapon is. In the number 4 spot, we have the one, the only, Golden Frying Pan.
Gott in Himmel, it's wonderful. It's more than wonderful. It's perfect.
The Golden Frying Pan, the only weapon besides the Golden Wrench, which only 101 have ever existed, to actually be called gold in-game rather than Australian. To my knowledge. There might be a weird exception out there. The Golden Frying Pan is the endgame of weapons for most people. Sure, you got stuff like the painted Cowmangler, but most people don't know about those, so for the majority of people, this one's going to be way more recognizable. You've probably only seen it in-game a few times by some dude wearing 3 unusuals at once, unless you go to some custom servers. I had to go to a Skyle server to get gameplay. God, I felt like such a torque using the Golden Frying Pan, typing in /item just to find the pan and use it. Whatever, it just feels scummy. The Golden Frying Pan is exactly as it sounds, a gold-plated frying pan that, unlike the normal frying pan, can be used by spy and engineer as well. It turns people into gold upon a successful kill, which is pretty neat. That's also why I got gameplay with Spy and Engineer, just to show that you could actually use the Golden Frying Pan on those two classes, which usually those two are left out because their weapons, their melees, function so differently. There's little I can comment on. Who doesn't want a shiny gold hunk of metal to hit people with? It's beautiful, but it's only so high up because of its coat of paint. It's shiny, and I, as well as the rest of the TF2 community's monkey brains and neurons, fire whenever we see it. It's just so cool, because it's just pure gold, man. Though there are still 3 weapons I have ranked above it because I think they're cooler on their own. Right now, we are going to look at the last weapon in the cool tier. Up next, for the bronze medal, not literally, the last in the cool tier, I have what I believe is the coolest of the golden weapons. See what I did there? Awarded to very few people. But I have to include it since technically some people have it. The Saxy.
Oh, I'm gonna bite the living hell out of them!
Earlier in the video, I talked about the Memory Maker, which was for coming in 2nd to 7th in the Saxy's annual SFM Awards ceremony. However, if you came in first, you would receive this hunk of metal, which in my opinion is the coolest hunk of golden metal of them all. Specifically gold. Because like I said, this is number 3, not number 1. The Saxy's design is similar to the Oscar, but instead of an Oscar statue, it's a gold-plated Saxon Hale with his arms crossed. It's pretty neat. Just like the Golden Frying Pan, it also turns people to gold. This weapon is especially cool because it's more than just a hunk of metal. It's a mini statue of the CEO of Manco that you whack people with. It's also all class just like the pan. It's basically the pan, but a lot more detailed, and in my personal opinion, has a lot more personality to it. I really like the Saxy. Too bad none of us, most likely, will ever be able to own one. Not just because most people aren't top-level SFM animators, but because the Saxy Awards were discontinued a while back. They are really a memento of the past. That's it for the cool tier. I originally only had one single weapon in the sexy ASF tier, but I thought that I don't know, there is kind of another weapon that I would like to be in that tier as well. And maybe the Saxy kind of deserved to be in that tier as well. It kind of rides the fence a little bit. There's a lot I could change in this list, and some stuff can be interchanged anyway. But we got 2 more. I'm going to stop rambling because I've been doing it enough this video. Let's go look at our silver and gold medal winners. Not so literally. We only got 2 weapons left. What will it be that goes into the number 2 spot? Chances are you aren't keeping track, so you have absolutely no clue. But make a guess. Lock it in. At the number 2 spot, we have the Weeb Sword, the Half Zatoichi.
Are we done? I was just getting warmed up!
The Half Zatoichi, despite the joke I just made, is such a nice looking weapon. It also has good functionality, restoring 50% of your max health upon a successful kill, which is just the cherry on top. The Half Zatoichi is a katana, what do you expect? The handle grip is quite nice, and the actual blade itself? Badass. Really, do I even have to say it? It's a big ass katana. It's sick. It doesn't just stop there. When killing an enemy, it will also decapitate them and bloody up the sword. And even though I haven't been taking it into consideration when ranking, the swooshing sound the sword makes when you swing is satisfying as hell. It's a little ear-piercing, but almost in a good way, if that makes sense. It just feels sharp and powerful. Hands down, no question about it, it is the coolest non-reskin multi-class weapon in the game. Though I do think it looks a little bit better on Demo Man. Not that it looks bad on Soldier, but it's definitely more of a Demo Man weapon. This was originally what I had at the number 1 spot, but I decided after seeing the new number 1, I just couldn't deny the superiority, even if I think it's a bit contrived in design. I know you're tired of hearing me say it, but you only gotta hear it one more time. Let's slice our way through over to the number 1 spot and figure out once and for all what is the coolest multi-class weapon in Team Fortress 2. No mess around. Drumroll, please.
Oh my god.
For the first time in my life, I'm at a loss for words.
It's beautiful.
Okay, look, I originally had this at the number 2 spot, but after seeing it in-game and looking at the model more closely, I just can't deny that this weapon is what the kids call peak. The Capper is a ray gun that was introduced back in the Invasion update of 2015. The Capper has pretty much everything going for it. The sound design is so nice, the little wavy swoosh sound it makes when shooting. The muzzle flash and the tracers it fires feel so satisfying. I actually found myself hitting more shots when using the Capper than the stock pistol. Maybe it's just me, but those tracer and particle effects make it a lot easier to actually hit my target. I'm not sure why. The battery pack for ammo is really cool, and then the thick alien tech design just brings it all together. It's pretty much the quintessential idea of a ray gun. Well, unless you play a lot of Call of Duty Black Ops, maybe that's what you go to, but this looks like a ray gun. And I think they did a really good job at making it just TF2 style. I personally really do like the design of the Capper, especially on Scout. It just works. Not that it looks bad on Engineer. It's not the Hazatoichi or the Pain Train situation where it's like almost bad on one, but good on the other. It looks good in Engineer's hand as well, but I think it's a little bit better on Scout. Anyway, the Capper takes the gold medal today, the number 1 coolest multi-class weapon in Team Fortress 2. Congratulations. We'll do it for this month's video. I hope you enjoyed. This video was just testing the water a little bit, so let me know if you'd like to see me do more lists like this for the rest of the classes, or if you'd rather see this series end after just one video. Don't be afraid to leave a comment and give me your feedback. I love hearing it. Thanks once again, and I will see you guys next time.